Cats. Cats, cats, cats? Cat stories? Well, the last two on my animal wisdom playlist were about dogs, so it's only fair that we now do a story time about cats. Welcome to the Animal Wisdom playlist. I'm Heather Ann Ferri. I'm a healer. I'm a shaman. I'm a mystic, and it is cat story time. When I think of these guardians who walk around beside us in life, the silence, the mystery behind them, the flexibility, the intuitiveness, the ancient keepers. Meow. Cats. They hear what we cannot hear, they sense what we refuse to feel, and sometimes they heal us in ways no human ever could. So, tonight I'm going to share some stories about cats, one who healed through sound energy, another a mystic who responded to through vibration and frequency in the language of the soul, and then two cats that worked in a hospice and what their jobs were. So, welcome to the Heather Ann Ferri channel. If you haven't subscribed, we'd love to have you a part of the community, sending you blessings and obviously much love today. And well, where shall we begin? Cats. Hmm. The cat who healed through sounds. Think about that phrase. The cat who healed through sounds. In my local area, there was this woman who was a horse owner. She would ride horses, take care of horses, was loved horses, and her best friend hired me as a trauma coach. And so learning about how she's healing, I'm doing energy work, breath work, meditation work with her. She approached me about her cat. She said, I'm wondering if you can help my cat. The cat was declawed, and now the cat is having trouble using her claws and walking, literally walking. The cat won't walk, and they don't quite know what to do. And I'm wondering if you can heal the cat's paws. And this was early on in my career. And I thought, well, I can't promise you anything, but I'm happy to come over and try. So we scheduled a session. I did come to the house. We chose a room that the cat was really familiar with. I said, why don't you hold the cat? Because, in mama's arms, that's always a beautiful thing. And I sat there for a moment, grounding my breath. I needed to change the breath patterns in the room and establish that I would be the master energy in this room. And so as I was doing the breath work, and the cat's just, minding its own business, just kind of like, I don't know what's going on here, I decided to start chanting the healing chant to the mother and the cat. Well, guess what happened next? Slowly, that cat curled up in mother's arms, moved its paws, stretching its paws towards my face, towards the sound frequency, sound healing. Let me check on the volume here. Okay. Checking on sound just to make sure this is on. Okay. So yeah, and that was really fascinating. So I just kept on chanting, and you know, this cat wasn't moving. It was like, I'm putting my paws out here that are hurting for you. And so I brought my hands, my energy, didn't touch the paws, but kind of encapsulated the energy and kept chanting for roughly 8 to 10 minutes. That's a long period of time for a cat to be in that position. So, one, the cat was choosing healing. The cat was responding to my energy as a shaman. And what happened after that 10 minutes? Any ideas? That cat leaped out of mama's arms and was running around the room, happy as can be, and was just like, and we, I remember the owner looking at me and she was like, I think you healed her. I think she's okay now, and I was like, wow. But when I really looked at how receptive the cat's energy was and just soaking in all of that unconditional love and then the frequency of the voice, animals are really amazing. But you might be saying, well, I have a cat in the house, but it's always sick or it's always whining. Well, I want to introduce the idea, especially to my owners, that that cat is there also sometimes to be a mirror. It can be mirroring things that you're not aware of that you need to start to address. It may, I talk a lot about on my channel and Facebook about water all the time. Well, I can't tell you the water stories with cats. I had a doctor client who was based in New York City. She was an older woman. She had a massive stroke. And I was kind of known in the underground world years ago as the person to go to if you had a massive stroke because of a physical therapist that wrote a blog about my work and how I was able to get her from severely disabled to 95% better with 8 agent sciences, and one of them being a medical grade water. And so this doctor, in New York hired me for meditation and breath work and healing sessions. And I think also just to release a lot of frustration and anger at some things that did not go right in the medical system for her. And she had a cat. And so when she bought the Japanese medical device, it's really fascinating when you start putting out different glasses of water because now the cats will do anything to get to that type of water. They know. They'll misbehave, they'll do things that aren't normal because, you can do all kinds of experiments. Dogs can be different, but really I've heard so many stories about owners who have bought in the water systems and the cats just, especially with the medical grade water going, they know right away and they want to drink that water. They're smart. They're intuitive. They probably can smell that there's no chemicals in it. And so it's just really, and so what does that do for the owner? Well, that allows the owner to be dedicated to drinking more water as well. So you can heal, you can learn from the mirroring of how your animals are responding in the house. So they're great teachers, they're great messengers. Another story is I knew a lawyer who was handling a hospice that was being built. And they were trying to use more alternative methods within the care of hospice. Hospice is an incredible, people who work in hospice are incredible human beings to help you transition into the next stage in your development, your soul development. And they had 2 cats in the hospice and they had jobs. So the president of the hospice, their office, whenever they would leave the desk, one cat would go right into the seat and be like, I will carry on the assignments today until the boss comes back. Every time. Every time it was like, this is my seat when the boss is gone. See ya. And then the second cat, well, a little bit more mysterious and intuitive. They started to study that when a patient was going to transition, pass away, roughly 15 minutes beforehand, the cat would sit at the edge of the bed of the patient every time in the same spot. And so the aides and nurses would start to take note. They'd be like, oh, so-and-so's got about 15 minutes left. Let's call the family. Let's get things working here to help them move to the other side every time. They're guardians, they're messengers, they're the connection, the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. It's absolutely fascinating. You know, I don't own any cats. I grew up with dogs and I am a dog lover. I would definitely buy dogs and have them in my house. But cats, I appreciate so much more because I'm so cat-like. And I've always, people always say, well, why don't you get a cat? And I'm like, because I'm just too much of a cat, that there's too much cat energy in the house. But cats are always surrounding my house. And I have found even over the years when I was in New York City doing personal training with clients, and sometimes the cats would get too busy and they'd be like, we're going to put them in the other room. I remember sitting in front of this couple. We were doing meditation. I'm sitting cross-legged. My eyes are closed and I'm in a trance with them. I open my eyes and the cat is literally sitting on my lap. I didn't even know it was there. It was like, hello. I just thought I would stop by. So it's like, it's really, really quite amazing to see how cats respond to energy. So I would love, to hear any stories from you. And this just initiates the awakening that when you run into a cat in a park, on the street, there's no coincidence. It means something. Then you have to decide what it means. You have to sit. What color is the cat? How's the cat's eyes looking at you? What's the energy? What's the cat calling you to do? I'm just looking at some of my notes. So, there's not one size fits all answer. And that's the exploration that you start to have with animals. And you start to realize that they are teachers, they are healers, they are messengers, but more importantly, especially in the house, they're mirrors. I was telling somebody today, sometimes animals will heal in the house and sometimes they won't if their assignment is to try to wake up the owner to heal. And if the owner is not taking care of themselves, then that animal will not heal. And so I was sharing today with somebody about the breath playlist on the YouTube channel, because animal owners, when you relax your nervous system, when you're doing breath work, your animals relax their nervous system. They get to explore a master that's calmer and they respond. They're healthier for it. When I talk about the medical grade water from the Japanese device, there are clients that I had in the past that their cats lived way longer than they should have. Their dogs lived way longer. And, you got to wonder, you can't say, is it, but you got to wonder, is it the water? That all, in this, or was, it's something to consider. We're seeing animals right now in America, in particular, with so many health issues. And this is the wake-up call for owners. Your hearts are so pure. I know you love your animals, and it is about clean water and clean food, simple foods, so you can be more vibrant and have more intuitiveness. And so that's how animals can really bring us back to life, because I think we dumb them down. I think we discard them in ways that we don't understand just how magical and mystical they really are. They're messengers. And I'm trying to think if there's any other cat story I want to share before I end this video. I was mentioning one other thing today. July 4th is around the corner. And I believe specifically in America, we need to rethink how we celebrate that day. And what I mean by that is beautiful to see the colors in the sky, but firecrackers, that sound is a very disturbing to the nervous system for veterans who have PTSD and anybody else who has PTSD. And I had it for years and had to cover my ears and put headsets on. And I still do because I'm very sensitive to sound. But that sound of firecrackers is very disturbing to our animals as well. Why would we do that? If we're celebrating something, why would we be sending out a sound frequency that's abusive to those we're honoring and those we love? So I plant those seeds because if you have anything to say in your community or your city, bring this topic up. I mean, in America, mental health is off the charts. Let's spend that money somewhere else, maybe clean water, maybe silence. Maybe there's another way to celebrate July 4th instead of all of the noise. And so I want to just leave you with that sort of action, proaction towards health with our animals and ourselves. And if you are somebody in a position, you may rethink it. You may be like, I love July 4th, but I never thought of that. Well, look around. How are the animals responding when those sounds are going off? Everybody I've mentioned this to in the last couple of days are like, yeah, my cat, my dog's under the bed, basically hiding. Yeah. Well, people who have severe PTSD may not know it, but it is sending up their cortisone levels and their hormones are getting a little out of balance because of that pitch and that sound. And so these are things we tune into as shamans, as healers, as mystics. It's something we want to start to incorporate into communities and into how we're presenting things, especially something like the idea of July 4th. So I don't know how I'll be celebrating it, but I probably will have a headset on at the end of the day. And so I want to leave you with that. Thank you so much for tuning in to Animal Wisdom Storytelling. Eventually, as I grow this particular playlist, I am going to have specific people on that also speak about animals and write books about animals. I had an amazing conversation with a beautiful soul today. And so subscribe and like, and even if it's just for this particular playlist or also the breath work, the courses I have on the channel, I will be adding more courses. I'm also looking at some other possibilities in regards to that. Um, and what is the last thing just wanting to build tools. We need tools to evolve and be able to use in our lifestyle. So that's what this channel really is about. How did Heather Ann Ferri go from this, these health issues, this stuff to where she is right now? So thank you so much. Love having you here. I hope you have a blessed day and sending so much good energy to your cats and my cat lovers out there. Okay. Until next time, meow.